As Lu Sheng and the senior colonel chatted, he learned more about the caverns and the front line. Despite his strong desire to explore the deepest parts of the triple S-level caverns, he realized that goal was still out of reach. The colonel then tells Lu Sheng that based on his achievements in the military star selection and his status as a grandmaster, suggested that he should be promoted to major general as soon as he joined the military district. Being a general would give him more authority and resources to better understand the caverns, which the colonel only knows a little about since he is usually stationed on the outskirts. Lu Sheng's path was set to be unique compared to the average folk. As a grandmaster, he would lead special missions, sometimes alone or with small squads alongside other grandmasters. If he proved to be a great leader, he could even set a path to become a legion commander. Lu Sheng's eyes lit up, possibly imagining his future in the military. However, the colonel's next words brought him back to reality. He explained that recent reports showed that several double S-level caverns were facing monster uprisings, which could soon turn into even more dangerous triple S-level threats. Initially excited, Lu Sheng soon sighed and shook his head, realizing that these challenges were also too far off for him now. Their conversation went on casually until it was suddenly interrupted. The pilot announced that General Yu's defense line was under attack by powerful beasts, and they needed immediate help. This news shifted the mood, and seems like they are in desperate need of reinforcements. When Lu Sheng heard that General Yu was in trouble, he immediately asked how far away they were. The senior colonel estimated it would be about 3 minutes before they arrived. Lu Sheng didn't waste a second. He walked over to the aircraft door. The colonel, surprised by Lu Sheng's sudden move, started to ask what he was planning. But before he could get an answer, Lu Sheng was already opening the door. The wind howled as it rushed into the cabin. Lu Sheng, hands in his pockets, peered down at the chaotic battlefield below. Despite the daunting height, he wasn't worried. His only concern seemed to be whether his shoes could withstand the jump. He turned to the senior colonel and casually requested a new pair of shoes, insisting on the best quality available. To understand what happened on the front line, let's rewind back to 30 minutes earlier. We see the soldiers were desperately fighting off beasts. The scene was intense. Loud explosions rocked the front trenches, and suddenly, more beasts surged out of cracks in a distant cavern. These beasts varied in shape and size, making it clear that the soldiers' current weapons were doing little to stop them. Just when the soldiers thought they were at their breaking point, they glimpsed a figure appearing amid the chaos. As General Yu stood amidst the wreckage of the battlefield, wielding his great longsword, he sliced through the attacking beasts with a finesse that left the soldiers in awe. Their morale surged, chanting his name as he shook off the blood on his sword. His face spoke volumes about the grueling days he had faced without adequate rest, his breath heavy, his lips cracked and dry. After a soldier handed him a water bottle, General Yu gratefully gulped it down, emptying it in one long draw. It was a brief moment of relief in the relentless chaos. Perhaps this was the last wave of the day. General Yu quickly shifted focus and inquired about the arrival of reinforcements. The response was grim. The General Combat Squad was 2 days away, and their current forces were rapidly depleting. The headquarters urged them to keep holding. Frustration overcame him as he hurled the empty bottle to the ground, cursing under his breath. The frequency and intensity of the beast attacks were escalating. The worst part is that numerous 6th level and even one 7th level beast had been reported. The possibility of an 8th level beast appearing haunted his thoughts. The situation was dire. Without the immediate support of a General Combat Squad, the line they held was perilously close to collapse. No amount of ordinary soldiers could stop 7th level beasts. Meanwhile, the battlefield saw other heroes making their mark. Qin wearing his battle armor, his kicks sending beasts tumbling. Close by, Snowy manipulated her psychic powers with precision, her floating blades slicing through a flying beast with ease. Together, they cleared the area of remaining threats. With them on sight, also boosted the soldiers' morale. As they regrouped near General Yu, the general nodded approvingly. He knew too well that for them to last this long was not just due to the soldiers' courage. Officers like Qin and Snowy were also crucial. Qin laughed heartily after hearing the praise, followed up by saying, while General Yu handled the more powerful beasts, the weaker ones were no threat to him and Snowy. Qin and Snowy, the 2 youngest peak 6th level martial artists in the division, Many had speculated that they would soon become grandmasters. However, the news that reinforcements were still 2 days out was rough, but manageable. They were confident to hold 2 more days. But just as a moment of calm settled in, the earth beneath them betrayed their hopes with a violent tremor. A series of deafening booms echoed across the battlefield, and as General Yu turned towards the sounds, his eyes narrowed in dread. The worst thing he hoped to not happen had happened. From the deep rifts near the cavern, the ground began to give way, revealing 3 massive creatures. One of them, a massive gorilla-like creature with sharp fangs, a mantis with lethal scythe-like arms, and a monstrous centipede, its body covered with countless sharp legs and a mouth bristling with teeth, each charging towards the trenches with terrifying speed. Clearly, all 3 of them were 7th-level beasts. Everyone felt a chill run down their spine. The brief surge of morale evaporated in an instant as the soldier's face went pale. General Yu clenched his teeth, thinking to himself that handling one such beast might be possible, however, for they knew well that 7th-level beasts will always self-destruct before they die, causing massive casualties. It's impossible for his division to face 3 at the same time. As the beasts bore down on them, the weight of his greatsword in his hand felt heavier than ever. He wondered to himself, is he going to die here? He quickly steadied himself and gripped his greatsword tightly. His Grandmaster aura burst outwards. His voice cut through the chaos. My fellow brothers, do not fear. His words snapped the soldiers out of their paralyzing fear. Turn your weapons around, prepare for battle, and if you want to live, then spare no expense. He bellowed across the field. Though the soldiers knew their standard firearms and shells had little effect on these beasts, their use could still serve as a crucial distraction. Followed by another command, 6th-level martial artists, assemble. Several other officers, mostly injured, stepped forward. They readied their weapons as General Yu ordered all available artillery, heavy machine guns, and armor-piercing rounds to be fired all at once. Self-propelled guns, grenade launchers, rocket launchers, they used everything they got. As Chin coughed up blood, he looked at the bloodstain on his palm. Exhausted from days of continuous fighting, he managed a weak smile and joked, saying if he had known there were 3 7th-level beasts, he would have toned it down a bit earlier. He glanced at Snowy, whose eyes had turned completely red from the strain of using her psychic powers non-stop. He even joked and said she looked like a bunny now. Chin tried to lighten the mood. Maybe it was his way to cheer people and himself up. Wiping the blood from his mouth, he half-joked that Lu Sheng should arrive here in a few days. But what a shock it would be for him to find their corpses instead of a warm welcome. After saying this, he coughed again, and Snowy gave him a weary, annoyed look, silently urging him to save his strength by talking less, thereby increasing their chances of survival. Chin zipped his mouth and became more serious. As the barrage of gunfire and artillery ended, as expected, it did no damage to the beasts, but it provided a precious moment for the troops to regroup. All the 6th-level martial artists lined up behind General Yu, who was the only Grandmaster in sight, creating a palpable silence on the battlefield. General Yu's voice rose again, commanding everyone to prepare. It's all up to them now as they braced for what might be their final stand. Weapons were raised, and as the collective battle cries began to build, just as General Yu was about to give the order to charge, a sudden, intense whooshing sound pierced the air overhead. It seemed as if something had plummeted from the sky, and instinctively, many soldiers looked up. Was it a meteor, someone wondered? No, it wasn't a meteor. It was a person. Chin and Snowy recognized the person immediately, and many others also realized that the object falling from the sky was actually a person, drawing gasps of shock from the crowd. Snowy's face blushed as the thought of someone, the person she had been thinking about day and night. Is that really him? She murmured. But her joy was short-lived as she realized that Lu Sheng was plummeting right towards the location of the 7th-level beasts, putting him in imminent danger. Chin, ever the jokester even in tense moments, shouted to Snowy, teasing her about whether she knew the Mr. Show-Off making such a dramatic entrance. General Yu was equally astonished. Everyone's eyes were fixed on the falling figure as Lu Sheng appeared directly above the massive centipede-like monster. The beast, seemingly unconcerned, opened its vast maw as if to catch or devour him. Lu Sheng sneered, and just when everyone thought he was doomed, they gasped in surprise. And what happened next would haunt them for the rest of their lives. Lu Sheng smashed his foot down onto the creature's head, penetrating its skull with such force that the monster's body twitched twice before it died completely. As the dust settled, half of the beast's head was obliterated, and upon landing, Lu Sheng didn't miss the chance to command the quality of the shoes. Well, folks, that brings us to the end of the chapter. Another hiatus notice coming from the studio, as the chapter for today will not be released. Fingers crossed we might get an extra chapter for next week. Anyway, thank you all for watching, and as always, see you in the next one.